Hey everyone, it's been a while since I've put some content out there. I've been quite preoccupied with my side business and also with the full-time job at TechUcon. With my side business, I've been spinning up, if you're curious, an e-commerce business on the side about rope flow. So I've recently gotten into this exercise and I'm now actually even doing training and selling the ropes so that more people can get into it. But yeah, super interesting learning journey on the side. Anyways, back to the topic. I really felt the need to create some content, a video today, because I recently listened to the What Now podcast with Trevor and Christiana Mbakwe talking with Simon Sinek. On the one, I think the topic for it is why all leaders are idiots or something like that. Let me dig it up. Yeah, why are all bosses idiots? So definitely check out that episode. Let me see if I can pull the episode number for that one. That is the episode that was released on December 19th, 2024. So quite some time ago. But I only just listened to the episode and there were some points that really grinded against me that I really felt the need to create. And at the end of the day, if it helps you better understand how to approach values and purpose in your organization, that is wonderful. That's great. But if I'm even able to somehow, by some miracle, get Christiana Mbakwe to hear this episode, I would really love to get her perspective or if she still has more pushback on the topic. So I wanted to talk about some points and just kind of make it more of a free-flowing episode. So the biggest one I felt that there were two main things. One is the discussion around values. The second one is the discussion around purpose. The first thing that came across very strongly was that there is the confusion between like an organization's values being about money versus an organization having like proper, authentic values. And I would say values aren't and shouldn't be purely about making money. So we'll talk about that. But generally, if you're finding that an organization is bending and changing their values when it really boils down to the money issue, then I would argue that it's not these are organizations that are not authentic about their values. What I mean by being authentic about values is number one, it's naturally easier for a smaller organization with less people, or even if it's just a solo founder themselves, they are the organization. It's easier for them because they're small to be more authentic to their values. And as an organization grows, even as much as an organization will try to screen for values when they hire new people, when they add new employees, they're bound to end up adding people to their organization that are not 100% value aligned. And when values don't align, you may share the same mission and objective, but that mission or objective might be even, let's say, misinterpreted on top of a layer related to money, where maybe it's like, oh, how can we do this? But in the context of like making more profit. Or maybe even in the worst case, sometimes you actually, yes, have someone who's value aligned, but not mission objective aligned. Um, so sometimes those kind of situations can happen. Yes, you can bring on board someone who don't share your values or even share your values, but don't share your mission. These larger organizations, because they have grown, they've added people and people are messy, right? It's harder. It is going to be harder for a larger organization to be authentic to their values because of the very fact that there are just more people in it. That doesn't mean that values are not important. I think it's still very important to look at values for a variety of reasons, which we'll get into that. Um, but do recognize there's the first distinction on the type of organization. Because when we talk a bit about or at least when I think from the perspective, I don't know if Christiana's perspective is only solely applicable to corporations and particularly, public corporations, or does her view also apply to, let's say, family businesses or individually run businesses as well? Because yes, like naturally, if her view is specific to public businesses, then what we generally see with public corporations is because you are public held, shares are available, and now you have regular shareholders, not only employees, which you've tried your very best to hire and screen for employees that have good value alignment and mission alignment. But once you start bringing on board public shareholders, and they will definitely influence decision making, influence the purpose of your organization, and skew it more towards profit purely because that's what shareholders care about, right? Um, that is something that in her case, if she's talking specifically about that, then I would say I 100% agree with her. But if she's also thinking about an organization in the form of a family business, then I would strongly disagree. Because when you contrast with some of these small organizations, these small organizations can be more value authentic versus, like a corporation where they say they have values and a mission and are actually more or less greenwash and doing it for the sake of looking good or trying to sell that sense of belonging, right? Ultimately, I believe I really agree with Simon's discussion on Adam Smith's topic of definition of capitalism. Money is not the objective. Money should be the result of it, right? Like the farmer who selfishly wants to make the best butter so that he can sell more. Um, yes, in this case, his objective is to sell more and he creates better butter in order to sell more. But I actually agree that I believe that more strongly so, if the farmer is passionate about making the best butter possible, money will naturally come as a result. If you purely make profit the main objective, then in some cases you may achieve that objective in ways that are not aligned with your personal ethos. And here, I think yes, the Adam Smith's definition of capitalism stands, but how you define like the core objective behind it and what comes first, I think matters as well. Um, so talking a bit about the values piece and kind of distinguishing it from purpose, the way I like to think of it is if it's not already been properly set out and understood, purpose is mostly the objective, the why, the grandeur mission of the organization. And the values are kind of the underlying core values of the organization that underpin how decisions are made in order to achieve that mission or objective. So for example, you may say, let's say if your mission is to um, improve sustainable energy, right? And let's say if one of your values is security versus another one of your values is transparency, the way you might approach that may be slightly different. You may make certain decisions that you would more willingly uh, kind of resonate with if the decision is related to that sense of security versus if it isn't. So, for example, let's say the government says, "Okay, we really like your technology, we want to use your technology, but in exchange, you have to disclose all of your customers' information to us because we are the government." And if that's the case, then if you value security, then you probably decline that. Versus on the other hand, if you value transparency and you maybe care like you want to make that information publicly available and you don't think that goes against your sense of what you define is the necessary level of privacy, for example, or privacy rights, then in that case you may be more willing to say yes to the client, right? Sorry, I digress a bit, but my main point is the the values are kind of how you achieve that. So it is, yes, you may share the objective, but it's also very important to share the definition of values so that everyone on the team is moving towards this objective in the same amicable way and agreeable way, because you don't want to get there at all costs. Um, Another big reason why I'm kind of ranting off between the distinction of purpose versus values is I often find that a lot of people are not able to clearly articulate their purpose. They don't even know maybe what their own why is. And on the other hand, I find that values are easier to quote unquote stumble across. So I think it's more important to find value alignment first because most people have already solidified their values. Because values are typically a result of your upbringing. Yes, your values can change over time, but generally most people, let's say if we enter into the workforce, if we enter in after university or even after high school, we've already, for the better part or for the most part, already solidified our core values. And they do change, but values I find are usually much more enduring and much more solidified than even your purpose. And what I find quite interesting in discussion as well is Simon even goes as far as saying that actually everyone has one why for your whole life, which I personally don't agree on. Because I think everyone, we humans, both our values and our why will change because we are living, breathing, learning, and changing, right? Circumstances may happen or change with us, and our why will change. And a very good example is sometimes you see someone who gets cancer and now their life mission is all about something related to that. Or, after someone becomes a mother, then their life mission is something related to motherhood. Or even if we look at Halle Berry's recent interview with Trevor on his podcast, her mission now is all about menopause, but that only happened to her after she experienced menopause, right? Saying that there is only one why suggests that life is predetermined. If you're saying that, yes, there's only one why, but you just haven't stumbled across it yet. So that dictates that suggests that life is predetermined and you just haven't arrived at your why yet. So I disagree with that. I think that our why can and will change over time, and that's absolutely normal. But generally, I find even if you come across those milestone events and you suddenly shift or change your why, you will still find that your core values are relatively entrenched because those are the things that you were raised with. So yes, you have now a new mission, but then the way that you try to achieve it is same as how you would with your previous mission, if you are aware of it. But generally, I find most people are not aware of their purpose and are more readily able to identify their values, if any. Um, so Christina has that strong sense of kind of antagonizing purpose at work. I agree on one front, but I disagree on another front. On one front is, yes, I agree that employees shouldn't have to find purpose in work. Keyword here is shouldn't. But generally, it would be great if they were able to find purpose in their work. Why not, right? What I disagree more strongly on is that companies it seems that she's suggesting that companies shouldn't have to define purpose and values, as if that is some sort of glorification or greenwashing, and it's purely for the purpose of the corporation, or even, as she puts it, a privatization of a sense of belonging, right? Yes, some companies have done that. They've, done things like built gyms, put in daycares in their business, intentionally because they know that the more that they provide to the employees, the more likely those employees will stay at work and actually spend more time at work and be more productive. Um, I would say at the end of the day, yes, some companies have done that, but I still feel that companies should define their purpose and values. They should have it because, and again, do recognize that they should have core values. Um, that's still a very big topic as well because uh, there's a whole different thing on whether or not the organization has accurately and actually identified their core values and core purpose accurately. And yet another debate around like, do they actually authentically embody and make those decisions based on those values? Because in some cases they may have, but they may not actually do it for whatever reason. Maybe they've brought on board a lot of people who don't align on values. The company has evolved past their values. Those kind of things can happen as well. But generally, I believe that yes, there's more benefit to organizations having a purpose or value. Um, And I think why it's so important is because this ensures that those organizations or companies don't do exactly what Christiana hates so much, which is they don't exist to make money at all costs. I mean, great if they do happen to bring about employees that align with those purpose. Those employees will feel much more fulfilled and more passionate about their work. But at the same time, like, yeah, employees on the other side of pictures, they shouldn't be burdened to have to find that they have to seek out a sense of purpose in work. But find that companies should because it's much worse if they don't. And if companies have, then it's better for employees as well, and it's better for them as well. Um, the way I can think of it, and the personal example that I can have is when I used to work for an organization, I would hate doing certain things. And there are certain things that I still hate doing now, but with less passion. So one example would be organizing events. Another one would be doing data entry and doing data analytics. I don't like staring at spreadsheets, but when I was working for a company, I hated doing it so. And now that I have my own business, the same activities that I hate so much, I can still I can put up with it a bit more because I can see how it's helping me achieve my sense of purpose and move closer to my objectives, to my goals, right? So I can selfishly see more value in it, and therefore it actually makes me actually enjoy or put up with it a bit more. It doesn't change the fact that I don't enjoy analytics, but it makes it a lot more bearable. Um, and I find it a bit ironic that she talks about that, and she also kind of feels so strongly against it because at the same time, yes, wouldn't everyone find more fulfillment and be happier at work if there is that alignment in your values in purpose? So why shouldn't it be a priority for organizations to focus on that? Again, yes, there are right and wrong ways to do it, and yes, there are organizations that don't actually properly define values and purpose or don't authentically live out their values. So those kind of things can definitely happen. So, um, even if Christiana says that she doesn't want that from her office, she doesn't want a sense of tribe, a sense of community, but if given the choice to work in an organization that provides that versus one that doesn't, even if she says she doesn't want it from her office, I think we all know which is the preferred option, right? So yes, she says things like vision and values driven company will fire you too. And yes, sometimes they should, because organizations could undergo financial hardship. Though they may try their best not to fire. One example that comes to mind is when I was at Spring, we worked with a company that was trying to raise capital and they were running out of cash and they couldn't pay employees because they hadn't raised the capital yet. And we worked out with them that yes, you're trying to raise capital, but you have a bigger problem, which is revenue. Therefore, now you don't have the money. And in their situation, they made the tough decision actually not to fire people, but to have a difficult conversation with all the employees to be completely transparent about their financial situation and to ask if the employees would be willing to take a pay cut so that they wouldn't have to lay anybody off. And it's arguable that, is that the best decision? That yes might have been the best decision now because of hindsight and they were able to successfully increase revenue and successfully raise a round of capital. But without the power of hindsight, we don't know, right? Maybe that company was already bound to die. And if they didn't fire those employees, but instead had that discussion and had encouraged companies to take a pay cut, they may have actually been dragging out that pain because maybe it wouldn't have worked out. So it might have been better to terminate those employees and put them out there so that they could get other better opportunities or get more financial stability sooner rather than later, right? So again, like we don't have the full view of the picture and hindsight is always 2020. But not saying that money isn't important either. Yes, values, yes, purpose. But I would say money is not even superseded by values. It's one of the key dials as well. It's kind of like, you have your key let's say your dashboard in your car, and your dashboard has a speedometer, you have your fuel gauge, and both of them, neither, it's not that one is more important than the other. They're both equally important, right? Your car's not going to drive if there's something wrong with your engine RPM and you don't have enough fuel. So the same goes here. Like when you look at a company, yes, from the perspective of both the organization and also the employer, values, mission, purpose, that's important, but money is also always one of the key factors. And it's not that it's totally eclipsed or kind of masked over by values. And yes, values does not put food on the table. That's what I'm saying. Huh. Um, I would say that the main distinction here is to differentiate like what we look at as a good company that has authentic values versus a bad company that has superficial values and purpose. I would say that businesses should be a place of purpose and belonging because the alternative is much worse, right? You're encouraging profit at all costs if you're saying otherwise. But I'd say again as well, I agree to an extent. No, businesses shouldn't have that objective of purpose and belonging with the objective of replacing community. So that's at least how I would see it. Um, and then furthermore, Christiana also talks a bit about how she says that she has that luxury of getting to work for a company such as, with Trevor Noah and The Daily Show. Yes, I do agree that luck and privilege do play a role in a person's ability to stumble across this alignment. But I think what's more important, and this also really speaks to the last final point, is if you are intentional, and I think the keyword here is intentional. If you are intentional with seeking out, understanding your values, and finding an organization that has alignment on those values and purpose, that luxury is a little bit more affordable, more attainable, right? So at the end of the day, yes, even if your job doesn't give you meaning, that's fine. But if it does, all the better, wouldn't it? Right? So why I don't see why she's so against advocating for companies to do more of that. Um, to kind of circle back a bit about uh values and purpose changing over time. Um, I want to kind of hone in on this topic a bit more as well. Um, Purpose, I feel changes more so than values. And let's say from an organizational perspective, even more so, because purpose is typically a reflection of our current needs. Yes, financial pressure can skew that purpose to mean more about money as well, right? So, if an organization is running out of cash, then the profit side of things will become a higher priority under what informs purpose for that organization. But generally, if they care about values, they will still not do it in a way that goes against those values. But yes, some people sometimes make compromises and they sacrifice some alignment on values in order to match out current situations and current realities. And I think that's absolutely normal, and that's a reality of just being alive. Um, so the last tip that Trevor asked is, what if you can't find, or what if you aren't in an organization that aligns with your values? Um, I want to kind of tap onto Simon's answer because I think his answer was quite a rushed one that doesn't really give a good sense of how you might approach it. Yes, you can live in service, but I think the biggest one I want to say is number one is you can always quit. Yes, there may be limitations. You may have financial hardships. Maybe you can't afford not to work. Maybe you can't get a new job easily if you quit or if you're fired. But do know that yes, you can still always quit. Maybe you can't quit now, but you can still always quit later. In that case, if you can't do anything about your situation, the answer is uh, quite going is, in my opinion, the difficult answer is suck it up. Yes, you don't have to find purpose and value in your workplace, but be always intentional in knowing that you can keep an eye out for something else. You can always still quit. Maybe not now, but eventually. And if you're actively looking for opportunities with better alignment, then you're much less likely to feel like you're stuck and you don't have a choice, right? And I think the quote that really comes to mind here is, um, there's a difference between pain versus suffering, right? You can't always control what hurts, but you can control how much you suffer because of it. So, yes, you're putting up with it, but even just the mere thought of this is not permanent, that you can find and you can move on to other things in the future, makes that suffering less. So be proactive much as you can in order to find better alignment, right? So why stay miserable if you can always find better options out there? So I don't think there's an easy hack. But just be more aware that you are suffering because there isn't an alignment. That's the specific reason why you hate your job as much as you. And that is kind of the beginning thing that will help you understand how to move away from that pain. Because if you just sit there, yes, you will still feel that pain all the time and you will still suffer. But if you're now aware of what's causing that pain and what to move towards, then at least you have a fighting chance of moving away from it.